And now I am delighted to be joining Lisa Smart from the Lib Dems and David Bull from the Brexit Party. Can I just ask you, Lisa, I could start with you. Before you went into this campaign, you were riding significantly higher in the polls than you currently are now. Why do you think the Lib Dem vote is being apparently so significantly squeezed?
I think polls are one thing, and I think the only poll that counts is the one that's on the 12th of December. If you look at Lib Dem target seats, where we are smashing it out of the park in some seat polls, some of the ones in London, like in Finchley Golders Green, in Kensington, in some in the north, Sheffield Hallam, Westmoreland and Lonsdale, Hazel Grove Cheadle, we are on track to either win or come a very, very, very neck and neck second. And I think nationally, when it's an election where people get to decide what they're voting on, it's not up to politicians how people take their decisions. And the only poll that counts is on the 12th of December.
I mean, to be clear, James Winston didn't, frankly, argue very passionately this time for revoking without a referendum, did she?
So our policy is really clear. If we have a Lib Dem majority government, then we will vote to revoke Article 50.
But there's no chance of a Lib Dem government, is there?
In the more likely scenario where there is a hung parliament, our policy is really clear, and I know because I was in the hall at conference when we debated it, we revert to wanting a people's vote, which we fought for 3.5 years. 17 times we put down amendments to get a people's vote, and we welcome other parties as they join us on that journey.
I mean, the other party whose vote has been terrifically squeezed at the start of campaign is yours. Nigel Farage made a terrible strategic error, didn't he, in choosing not to campaign in seats where the Tories are currently the incumbents?
I mean, obviously, Brexit defines this election, and Nigel made that decision because he believes it is really important to get Brexit done. And he was very concerned. Let me just finish. He was very concerned that we would split the Conservative vote.
But he keeps saying it's not proper Brexit. He said it again tonight.
Well, it isn't a proper Brexit. So what Boris Johnson actually did is he actually said, if you remember, there would be no political integration. The transition period would not extend beyond December of next year. He also said he was trying to seek a Canada-style free trade agreement. Now, the problem is, no, I don't believe him. And that's the reason that people like me have to stand. That's why I'm standing in Sedgefield, because people like me need to hold the Prime Minister to account and keep his feet to the fire. And if you remember,
to account by not standing against him anywhere.
No, so we are standing against
any Tory-held.
There are 5 million Labour Leave voters.
If it's not Brexit, why are you not standing against?
We are standing in those seats where we believe the Labour vote is disintegrating. I can tell you, when I've been out campaigning in Sedgefield, there are generations of people who voted Labour, and I can tell you they will not vote Labour this time. They certainly can't bring themselves to vote Conservative. They will not vote for you because they do not believe that revoking is the right thing. They voted to leave. They want to leave. And that's why they'll vote for us.
But just to be clear, it looks to many of us who are going round the North East and the North Midlands that actually, because Nigel Farage didn't appear to have the courage of his convictions, that actually even in those Labour seats, you're now being squeezed.
The one thing I would agree with you on is I don't think you can believe the polls, because certainly the polls that I'm seeing and what I'm feeling on the ground are two disparate entities. They do not seem to equate in any way. And remember, we are only 7 or 8 months old. You know, we are fighting incumbent parties that have been around for hundreds of years. So we don't have the data that these parties have. We certainly don't have the infrastructure, and I will be very open about that. But what I do know is we have passion, we have conviction, and we have those voters who I think are shy and may not tell the whole truth to the pollsters.
Now, one of the things that some people would say about the Lib Dems is you're sort of neither, chalk nor cheese. Let's look at public spending for a second. We are living through a period where many people would argue that voters want a definitive end to austerity, and yet you are still a party that's saying that when it comes to current spending, there should be a permanent surplus, which some people would say means that there will never be the money going into public services that people want.
What we're saying is that we want to stop Brexit, because Brexit will make us as a country poorer and less safe. We will spend the money that we will save because the economy will grow faster in our public services, our 50 billion Remain bonus. We can spend that on things like the health service, on education, on the services that we all use. But we're being honest with people, and Joe, who flew out of the traps tonight and absolutely nailed it repeatedly this evening, said on mental health, we need to spend more money on mental health, and part of the way we'll do that is by raising taxes. We'll put a penny on the pound on income tax to pay for the health service. Joe was honest, we're being honest as a party, and I don't think you can say the same for other parties.
Well, actually, I think what
Was
I
that
would...
levelled at me?
It's your turn to speak.
Well,
I see, I see.
but actually, to be clear, I think some people would say that something that Joe Swinson and Nigel Farage have in common is they do, on the whole, speak their minds, but that can be dangerous, I would say. I mean, for example, Nigel Farage has made it very clear. I mean, he actually said live recently, he personally is doing absolutely nothing to reduce climate change. And whenever he talks about climate change, he talks about the costs of measures to prevent it rather than the benefits.
Well, I have to say, look, I'm an MEP. I spend a lot of time with Nigel in the European Parliament, and we disagree.
Not that much time, because you're not all there that often,
I have to say, I've been there almost every week that we've been sitting. So, actually, we do disagree on certain things. For my part, I do believe that we need to do everything for the climate. Can I say one thing that came out of tonight that I thought was good? For the first time, I heard all political parties saying maybe there are some areas that we need to take out of the political arena, health being one of them. And I, as someone who trained as a doctor, believe that very passionately. We need to plan for 20 years. This should be taken out of that political arena, and maybe, just maybe, politicians can change the way we think about things.
And just to be clear, as somebody who trained as a doctor, Nigel Farage, who is close, shall we say, to the American President Donald Trump, he says that there is absolutely no risk to the NHS from a trade deal with America. I know you're going to disagree, but do you really think there is no risk at all?
Well, I have to say, I wrote the health policy for the Brexit Party, so I know that we want it to remain free at the point of need. We want to stop any further privatisation, and we want to look at those bits that are privatised to see whether they give taxpayer value for money. In terms of the privatisation already, remember Labour brought in PFI, which was a disaster. We are still paying for it. I think what is true in terms of a free trade deal is we need to be able to buy pharmaceutical medicines at the cheapest price from anywhere in the world. And that's a good thing because we can drive down cost.
The best thing for our NHS is to remain a member of the EU for so many reasons. Partly so that we can actually afford to pay for it. We're all living longer. We're living longer with conditions like diabetes and dementia, and we need to pay for that. I'm a councillor in Stockport, and the social care crisis, as was said, is something that we need to work on a cross-party basis of. The other reason we need to stay in the EU for our health service is for all the doctors and nurses who are working their socks off, giving phenomenal care. I've seen it in my family earlier this year, and that is why we need to vote Lib Dem on the 12th of December.
Great to talk to you both.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you or see more of you as this extraordinarily exciting campaign continues.
Thank you.
All the best. So now we are wandering over.